Before we get started, a brief reminder that any and all opinions and views shared by hosts and guests on this podcast are the speaker's own and do not represent the views of Primal Kitchen or its affiliates or parent company. What is Ketone Supplement going to do for me?
So ketones are energy. The energy is not from caffeine. It's not from sugar. The energy is from ketones. Ketones are a source of calories. Everything that your body is doing that takes energy. Our bodies for 300,000 years, like ancestral humans, have always been able to make ketones. You make ketones all the time from fat. So humans have always been making ketones in our metabolism because we didn't always have this abundance of carbohydrates. There's no like Fruit Loops on the savannah. We're often in a low carb, fat burning state. And when you're burning fat, you're making ketones. And especially your brain loves when there's ketones present. It feels really good. That's why people a lot of times feel good when they're fasting or eating low carb, is that their brain is running on ketones. So yeah, ketones is something that your body makes naturally from fat.
Hey everyone, I'm here with my friend Michael Brandt from Chicago. We just learned we're like old neighbors. He is the founder of Ketone IQ, and I'm so excited. So fill us in. How did you get into this Ketone IQ thing? Give us the background.
Morgan, it's awesome to be here. It's awesome to meet with another Midwesterner transplant to California.
I love it. We got to stick together.
Yeah.
Keep it grounded.
Yeah. How did we get here? I studied computer science in undergrad, got really into biohacking.
He studied at Stanford. He's leaving that out, but that's where he went to school. I'll drop the name for you. Anyway, okay. So you studied computer science at Stanford.
That's right.
Okay.
And I saw that some kid a couple years ahead of me named Kevin started Instagram. I saw some kid year after me named Evan started Snapchat. I saw there was all this innovation going on the smartphone. And I was thinking, okay, well, where's the next major wave of innovation going to come? Because we have Uber, we have Snapchat, we have all these cool apps on the
Airbnb, the whole thing. It's all happening.
Yeah, it's all happening, and that platform seems relatively like mature, tapped out. Like, I'm sure there'll be further innovations there, but I saw that there's this growing segment of people that were myself included. Like I was ordering continuous glucose monitors off of like weird parts of the internet because it wasn't like cool yet. This was like 10 years ago. Like there was no levels.
Yeah, you had to do. I did like finger prick myself, where you had to like put it in the blood on the little drop of the thing and put it in the monitor. And
exactly,
that's like a big commitment.
Yeah. And I did a 7-day fast with my co-founder in our community. I started a fasting group with my co-founder. I actually got up to 100,000 members online. We were very early on like intermittent fasting, biohacking, whatever you want to call the general movement around like quantified self. I don't think that those words really apply anymore because it's like crossed into the mainstream where like, I don't know, my aunt wears a Fitbit. Do you call her a biohacker or just like a person that is healthy?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I saw a decade ago was that the human body was emerging as this really exciting platform for innovation where people were putting sensors like on and in their body, measuring their footsteps, measuring their glucose levels, measuring their sleep score. And I was like, this is to me clearly going to take off, that your body is like amazing piece of technology and we are just barely beginning to understand it. So, okay, if we can take as a premise that the human body is an interesting system and there's a lot of innovation going on, like what are the most important primitives in that system? And I saw, okay, well, when I'm fasting, what am I doing all the time? I'm measuring my ketone levels. If I'm doing a low carb diet, I'm measuring my ketone levels. If I'm running around, I started getting into endurance sports, marathoning. Okay, when your body's running low on fuel, you start making ketones from fat. And so the word ketone kept coming up, and I experienced firsthand, people feel really good. Like they feel sharp when they're fasted or low carb, in due large part to the ketone. And I asked the like dumb/smart question of like, well, if ketones feel so good, why can't you go to the store and just buy 10 grams of ketones?
Right.
Because that's what's driving people feeling like this mental clarity, this sharpness.
Yeah.
Why isn't that just available? Why do you have to like fast for 2 days? Or why do you have to like do a super restrictive diet to get your ketones up? Or like if you are doing those things, can there be something that like helps you to extend your intermittent fasting window? And then in 2019, I got a $6 million contract with the Department of Defense to develop exogenous ketones, research them. And we did a ton of research. Basically, the biggest project that had ever been done, the biggest research project that had ever been done on exogenous ketones and how they work for physically, cognitively demanding missions, and saw some really interesting.
Okay, but so back up. You're just like, oh, so I just got this $6 million contract. Like, what does that even mean? Like, talk me through that.
The U.S.
Like, you go put a grant out to study it, or like, how does this come about? How does this even come about?
The U.S. government has different pools of money for small business innovation research. The DoD is interested, obviously, in a lot of like infrastructure, body armor, tanks, AI, drones, that kind of stuff. There's also money around there at the time was money around nutrition, and especially around exogenous ketones was really interesting as a field of exploration because it costs $1 million to train a Navy SEAL. And if you can expand their active service, or if you can make them more effective while they're in service on just like a human level, like put the like guns and body armor aside, like if you can make someone just like more sharp and effective and like more longevity in the force, that's worth something. And the early science on ketones is really interesting, that like they're more efficient. They don't use ketones don't use much oxygen to turn into ATP, cellular energy.
Okay.
So that started being really interesting for these like low oxygen, like altitude fighter pilot groups. There started being a lot of like interest around it. And we came in and said, okay, well, if the DoD has these pools of money, and I was interested in it along with my co-founder, we were just interested in ketones. Like we had that kind of entrepreneurial question. And then we're like, okay, well, what if we could make 100,000 of these? Like, what if we could just like get it off the ground, be the first to make like commercialize pure ketone drink?
And you could buy them like ketone salts, right? Like ketone esters, right? I mean, Mark used to, I remember Mark plays ultimate frisbee every Sunday, and he used to take like some early ketone thing. This is like 10 years ago, so around the same time. But I remember Mark telling me these like horror stories where he's like, Morgan, I went to my ultimate frisbee game. I took my ketones on an empty stomach before, and I had to like jump the fence at like the Malibu middle school because he was like going to have explosive diarrhea.
Yes.
Sorry, this is like way too much information. But he would like give me these ketone ester stories on Mondays. And I'm like, I don't know, Mark, like, I don't think I'm going to be like jumping on this ketone ester bandwagon.
Yeah.
But he said he would feel great. But so that was what you could get then, but it was, give me the lowdown. What's the difference?
This is a great story. Actually, I'm glad you did share it, because like that is a real challenge in the space. So we launched the world's first ketone ester. Okay. And the ketone ester generally was an improvement around.
Were you the one sending those things to Mark 10 years ago?
Probably. Well, let me clarify, because like ketone salts are this different other thing that cause a lot of stomach upset.
He was doing ketone salts.
Yeah. So
and it came from like an Oco-Man or something.
Yeah, it was a powderized. So
something like that.
So ketone esters, like we've always supplied ketones in like a liquid format. So if it was a powder, it was most likely a salt. A ketone salt is pretty much what it sounds like, where it's a ketone molecule and a salt molecule 1-to-1.
Okay.
And then what happens is, if you want to get your ketones up, you're having a lot of like salts, like sodium, magnesium, potassium, like a lot. Just to give a sense, like an effective dose of ketones, like what we have in our product is 10 grams of ketones inside of like a packet of LMNT, for instance, is like 1 gram of electrolytes. If you had 10 grams of electrolytes, like you're gonna blow your guts. Like if you're keeping that 1-to-1. Yeah. So even if you're like 5-to-5, like that's one of the challenges with ketone salts, is like they're very affordable, which is a plus, but they are in this like 1-to-1 ratio of ketones and salt. And so you can't get your ketones.
Get enough ketones because it would require coming with so much salt. And that's why the taste is so bad.
That's right.
Okay. Interesting.
And then our innovation was, we said, hey, look, we can give you 10, 20, however many grams of ketones, and it's just ketones. And it will just it will raise your blood.
How did you come up with this? Like, what did you do? Are you making it yourself?
We have like, no man is an island, right? Like we're definitely standing on the shoulder of giants. I think as an entrepreneur, you can appreciate, like, you're always like wrapping together. You're like getting part of this ingredient from here, and then you take it over there and you run this process on it, and you glue it all together. So I don't own like a $200 million like chemical manufacturing facility, but a lot of novelty in how we pulled it together. We convinced some people to make the people who had the capacity to do it. We like convinced them to make it at scale, things like that. To get it together, we financed it, figured out how to like make this proof of concept. We were the first to ever. There'd been some like ketone esters at like small scale, kind of lab bench scale. Like someone had made it in a lab once, and it cost like $20,000. We were the first to make it. It wasn't as affordable as it is today. Now it's $5 a shot. It was like $30, $35. But we were the first to ever bring it to like that. At least like $30, $35. It wasn't mainstream yet, but it wasn't.
You could test it, you could get feedback, you could,
So we could test the feedback. We could get a DoD contract. It made sense for like Navy SEALs and like Pro Tour.
Yeah, like super high performance people.
Yeah, like the Tour de France riders and stuff.
Okay.
It wasn't like a real business, but it was cool. It was like science for project mode. Got to go to some like military bases that like you can't find on Google Maps, like some stuff that doesn't exist out there. And then after a few years of that, we're innovating always on like the supply chain and the formula, and got it down to a spot where able to
Could take it
deliver.
mass.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So for people listening who have like no idea what we're talking about, like what is ketone supplement going to do for me?
Yeah. That's a great, we should start there.
Yeah, we should. But they got a good background now.
Yeah. So ketones are energy with no, it's not, the energy is not from caffeine. It's not from sugar. The energy is from ketones. Ketones are a source of calories. So caloric energy, everything that your body is doing that takes energy, it's coming from something with calories in it that you ate. Ketones are a unique provider of calories that your body can use in some really interesting ways. A lot of people have heard of ketones because of the ketogenic diet, because of intermittent fasting, where our bodies for 300,000 years, for all like ancestral humans, have always been able to make ketones. You make ketones all the time from fat. Your brain especially likes ketones, and your brain can use sugar and not a lot else. So when your blood sugar goes low, your brain can't use fat. You need to turn fat into ketones to fuel your brain. So humans have always been making ketones in our metabolism, making and using ketones, because we didn't always have this abundance of carbohydrates, right? There's no like Fruit Loops on the savannah. So we're often in a low carb, fat burning state. And when you're burning fat, you're making ketones. And especially your brain loves when there's ketones present. It feels really good. That's why people a lot of times feel good when they're fasting or eating low carb, is that their brain is running on ketones. So yeah, ketones is something that your body makes naturally from fat. It's metabolite. So it's something that your body can turn into ATP for cellular energy.
People on the keto diet are like, they're testing their ketone. They're like doing ketone tests to determine if they are in ketosis or not, right? Like
that's right.
They're testing their body for ketones, I would assume.
Right. So if you're doing keto, I don't consider us a keto diet company, but we're like adjacent to it. Like a lot of our customers are keto diet, but a lot of our customers are not.
That's going to be my question. Like, do you need to be in order to take this supplement, or do you not? And by the way, this supplement comes like in a little shot. You can find it at Sprouts, online. But yeah, give me the lowdown. Like, is it better if you're on the keto diet to take them? Does it matter? Like, can it benefit everyone? What's the scoop?
Pretty much everyone can benefit, because it's like protein or electrolytes. It's like a fundamental primitive in our system of metabolism, where everyone's body has the equipment to use a ketone. Just same way as like sugar or something else fundamental. Like so if you're doing the keto diet, what's happened is like you've restricted your input of carbohydrate, and you're forcing your body to make a lot of ketones from fat all the time. So that's why people do the finger prick, because they want to see like, am I in ketosis? Is my body making ketones? Am I burning fat? Ketone IQ can work for that person. It just adds ketones to your system. That's a no sugar energy boost that you'll feel right away. It's really helpful when people are feeling kind of like sluggish on a keto diet. It's like, you can't go eat like Cliff Bar, right? You can't eat like sugar. You probably don't want to have too much caffeine. So a lot of people doing a carb restricted diet will like Ketone IQ, because it gives them a 100% keto compliant, pure ketone. Like, and importantly, it's like immediately bioavailable.
Okay.
So immediately like switches you on.
People are using it as like an alternative to what? Like
to
5 hour
coffee or 5 hour.
Okay.
Yeah. And then if you're not keto diet, so I don't do a strict keto diet. I'm a big endurance athlete. I'm running like 80 miles a week. And so I have mixed diet. I try not to let my blood sugar spike too much. I have like more fibrous carbohydrates, all that good like primal stuff. Like if I'm going to eat, I'm not afraid of fruits or something. I stay away from like Gushers and Skittles, but I have carbohydrates in my diet. And I also have a lot of Ketone IQ, and it stacks. Like if you're not doing a keto diet, if you were to drink an exogenous ketone, it's just another fuel, and it's at like the top. It'll be the top of the stack. When your body has ketones present, that'll be the first thing that you metabolize. So if I go on a bike ride and I have like goo shot and Ketone IQ, my body will just be burning both.
Interesting.
And it's interesting because they go through different pathways. So like that's why a lot of athletes have gotten into it who are not necessarily keto diet. Like when I was saying earlier, like the Navy SEALs and the Pro Tour bike riders.
What other athletes are into it? Give me the scoop.
Yeah, so a lot. So Jake Paul has gotten into
Who's Jake Paul?
Jake Paul is a boxer,
okay,
big YouTuber,
okay,
and probably like top 3 maybe one of the most
But
famous.
he's not dating Taylor Swift, so the 38-year-old, 39-year-old moms don't know
Right.
who he is. Okay, but some dudes listening know who he is. Yeah. Okay, got it.
And he heard about it because Conor McGregor was using it. Who I don't know if you've heard of.
And is this another fighter of some
Pretty,
sort?
yeah,
Okay.
like
Yeah,
pretty
it sounds familiar.
globally famous fighter.
Yeah, like super famous person that I don't know. Okay.
Yeah. Joe Montana is an investor in our business. You've heard of
Cool.
Joe? We know Joe
I know
Montana.
Joe Montana,
Okay.
yeah, of course.
And yeah, a lot of athletes started using it because they saw just that mental switched on factor where like they don't have to do this restricted diet and they're able to just feel like dialed in. It's this weird thing. It's like ketones, technically all parts of your body use it. If you're on a bike, like your quads are using fuel, they can use ketones, but it really is this like mental thing where people feel like on their in the ninth inning, they're more switched on. And then that started to like bend towards like the workplace, like knowledge work, where people just feel like, oh, well, why am I slamming like Red Bull at 4 p.m.? I'm not going to sleep that well. Like, oh, this is interesting. Ketone IQ feels kind of like this like low dose Adderall kind of feeling, a runner's high kind of feeling, but I don't have to, it's not going to keep me up all night. It's not
You're not
full
getting
of sugar.
the consequences of that like later. Yeah. And you can take it like before bed even, right?
Yeah. Because it doesn't interfere with your sleep. It's just like a fuel. It like it helps your body to, do whatever it needs to do. So when you're at that point in your circadian rhythm where you're like recovering, it'll just help you recover better.
Sleep better?
Yeah. So this is something we've seen too with like, there's a study with cyclists where they were having their two groups that were doing intense training for 3 weeks. It was meant to like mimic the Tour de France. And there's a ketone group and a not ketone group. And they were both allowed to eat like ad libitum as much as they'd like. And the ketone group was having ketones 3 times a day. And the ketone group after 3 weeks was doing significantly better on their time trials. At the final time trial, they were doing 15% better. And they were having it 3 times a day, including right before bedtime. So it wasn't disrupting their sleep, and it was adding to it was accelerating their recovery. Because when you're recovering, like that takes energy too, right? Like if you exercise hard this morning, like your body right now is using energy to recover from that workout, and ketones seem to accelerate that process when you have them present. So the science around ketones is super interesting. Like I always think about it. There's like 20 studies that have been done, and there's like 200 studies left to do. It's very exciting. I read one of the best books I read this year is First and Thirst, the Gatorade book. How like Gatorade made electrolytes a thing in 1965 with the Florida Gators. They're like, like sweat seems to taste not just like water. There seems to be salt. So like what if we also replenish the salt? And here we are, 50 years later, and people are still like innovating around electrolytes. Like, how do we make something that works better? Can we make it more personalized? Can we do this? So I feel like we're, 5 years into the ketone world, and more if you go into the deep science, less if you go into when it's been like, available. Like we just launched in Sprouts this year. So we're very early in the like ketone world. It's very exciting.
It's very exciting. It's like super cool because you've taken something that like Mark's like a high performer, right? Like you got people like that who were like dabbling in this 10 years ago, but you've made it available, accessible, and like digestible for the masses because that was, it's very cool. I'm impressed. So you talked about running and nutrition. Like give me a little bit. You've done the Boston Marathon?
I've done the Boston Marathon. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. One time or more than one time?
I did it once. I've qualified 4 times and I did it once. I'll do it again. It's fun. It's a really fun, one of the like top 10 life moments. It's just very fun. Yeah. And when I first got into marathoning, that was the goal. I think for a lot of people it's like a level of seriousness on the sport that's like, you're not going to the Olympics, but like to qualify for Boston, you have to be like of a certain, for like a young male, you have to run like a 3-hour marathon, which is like, crazy. You got to put in some work. Like I don't know very many people that are just lacing up and doing that on a Tuesday.
Yeah, for sure. And how'd you get into running? Have you always been a runner?
No, I played a lot of soccer and I was just always athletic, like kind of do something every day person, like I played a lot of ultimate, just do something active every day. And then, ran sometimes,
There's like nothing about the Boston Marathon that sounds fun to me. It sounds terrible. Like this is like what's great is I grew up and my mom was like, C's get degrees. Like, don't worry about it. I went to University of Colorado, like surfed in South America for 2.5 years. And my friend Julie was like Ivy League, and she's a runner. And I'm like, this is the difference between me and you. Like my mom was like, C's get degrees. I feel like you need to be like a certain level of like
Type A.
I'm type A. I mean, my therapist once told me I was triple type A, but like a certain level of like, I don't know. Are you like a masochist or something?
Yeah.
Like who likes to like put themselves through this?
Totally.
I just like don't get it.
I ran the
Explain it to me.
I ran the Chicago Marathon a month ago, and on mile 20, I'm like, why don't I golf?
Yeah.
What am I doing?
Yeah.
Like golf is hard, no disrespect, but like it's not painful. Like I don't the
Yeah.
worst day of golfing. Like I run 80 miles a week, and like most of it I hate. Like it is really painful because like sure I'm faster than you or whatever, but I'm like running at my limit.
Yeah.
I'm out of breath. This shit sucks for me. Like I might have it.
We're just chasing the high.
Yeah.
Run high.
That post-run high is like that good stuff.
That's how I feel about my romance novels. I'm just chasing like the next best happy ending. This is so I can relate. I get it.
Yeah,
but this is like much less painful to go through. So okay.
Yeah.
I digress. So you got into running how long ago?
5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
And you're like doing the Boston Marathon, just like just like
I mean, I qualified for Boston on my first marathon.
Yeah, that's crazy.
In San Francisco, which is
okay. So what are the top like 3 running tips for people listening who might be endurance athletes?
That's a great question. Okay. Run slower.
Okay.
Running slower is going to help with a lot of things.
Interesting.
You'll be able to have better form. A lot of times when you're pushing yourself to the limit, running really fast, the wheels start kind of flying off, and little asymmetries that you have, like maybe your right side is stronger than your left side because you used to play tennis. Like some weird asymmetries will start to emerge. Versus if you go at like comfortable pace, you can keep it symmetric. You can focus on kind of all the other tips about like how your foot should be hitting the ground, how you should be more relaxed. Like you can focus on a lot of the other tips if you're like running it at a slower speed. You'll also be able to put on do more miles. Running is very much a volume game. You want to get better at running, just run more. You do have to do some speed work, but mainly if you can run successfully without being injured and just do more miles, you'll get faster. You also train your body you get aerobically fit. You can get very aerobically fit at sub-maximal speed. That when you're running, a lot of people talk about like zone 2, like lower intensity of runs, your heart is still doing the full motion. It's not going as fast, but you're still getting the full like expansion, contraction, and you're still developing the ability to metabolize fat, which is important because when you're running really fast, you don't have time to metabolize fat. Fat metabolism is slow, so you need sugar. When you're running slower, you're able to get good at fat metabolism, which is part of what makes you more of a like aerobically fit. It helps with your stamina in general. So you get a lot of benefit from running slow. There's injury prevention, better form, more stamina training. You get a lot out of running slower. And then once, twice a week, you can like do some spicy sprints.
Mark would totally approve this message.
Totally.
Like this is very much how he would tell someone to train if he still ran, but he doesn't run anymore. But anyway.
Yeah. I feel like I'm like stealing Mark's playbook. It's
I like
funny.
it.
Yeah.
People don't know. So carry on.
Yeah. No, it's funny because I when I started reading Primal Endurance and all this, I was like, wow. Like somehow we like arrived at a very similar set of conclusions. Because you'll laugh at the next I'm about to say, which is like spending a lot of time barefoot.
Yeah. Okay.
Where for those that don't know, shout out Paluva, Mark's company, like the 5 free toes kind of movement.
5-toe shoes. Yes.
Yeah. Or just straight barefoot. I do a lot of runs that are like barefoot or in stuff like Paluvas where you can, your toes are just free. A lot of modern running shoes, they constrict your toes.
Yeah.
If you think about like your hand going to like touch the ground, like, or a surface, there's some space between your fingers and like your fingers kind of spread out to absorb some cushion. And like what you don't want to do is like smash them all together.
Yeah.
You lose a lot of shock absorption, and you also lose a lot of, once you put like a thick foam rubber underneath it, you lose a lot of the ability to like sense the ground. There's this idea of like proprioception where you're like sensing the ground, and that's sending a signal to the rest of your leg on like how to react, how your quad muscle needs to fire and your calf muscle needs to fire. Like your muscles need to fire in a certain sequence. Imagine like you're feeling your way around the world in mittens.
Yeah.
like it wouldn't, you're like missing some signal.
Yeah.
So I like running barefoot or just spending time in general barefoot. You're not going to put up a PR. I'm not running the Boston Marathon barefoot. Oh, that would be fun. I'm not going to put up a personal record going barefoot. That's not the point. The point is that your technique will get impeccable because you'll feel every damn little thing.
Yeah.
And your body will just learn how to run correctly. You'll be the slowest run of your life, especially at the start, but you'll see like, wow, I'm touching the ground more times per minute. That's good for you. I'm not heel striking anymore. I'm not like slapping, my heel hits the ground and I slap it with my toes. Like that feels really weird when I'm barefoot, and it's bad in general. And if you do that while barefoot, and then you lace up a pair of shoes after doing that for, working that into your runs once, twice a week. Then when you wear normal shoes, your form you'll inherit that benefit that you got from the barefoot training. So yeah, that's a couple. I mean, I can go all day.
It.
Like I
okay, talk to me about nutrition.
And
also though, I have one last running question for you. So did you just were you in shape when you picked up running seriously or no?
I will give a sense. Like my first half marathon, I ran 1:45, half marathon. So people can do the math. Like if you took that out to a full marathon, I mean, you multiply that by 2, you get 3:30. But I was dead at the end of that, so that probably would have been like more like a 4-hour marathon level. So I don't know, like not terrible, not super fit.
Okay, got it. Okay, I was just curious.
I was just a huge nerd about it, basically.
Yeah,
like I don't think I have like a crazy genetic advantage. I wasn't super fit. I just was like started tracking everything. Like
this is a common theme for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Just big nerd ball energy on it and all. Like tracking my cadence, tracking my heart rate, I do a lot of runs where like I'll run as fast as I can without letting my heart rate go above a certain level.
So once it starts to go up, you just slow down.
You just slow down. And then the exercise is it's very mental because like how fast can I go while keeping my heart rate low? So
do you wear an Oura ring? You have one on? No.
I actually lost it a week ago. I almost always have it though.
What's
I love my
your heart
Oura
rate variability like it? I'm just curious if you know.
It's like 80.
Oh God, I'm so jealous. It's terrible.
Why?
I don't know. I swear this is like a thing. Maybe because I've had 3 babies in 5 years and I'm just fried.
You seem chill.
But I know it's but then I don't know. I'm in this heart rate variability journey. I'm trying to figure it out, but I'm not sure what's going on. I mean, I play tennis, live ball tennis. You're just basically running the entire time for 6 hours a week. So it's not like I'm lacking
physical.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I just started lifting again. So I don't know, but I think it's probably more maybe a sign of my mental health. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it's starting to creep up. Once I stopped breastfeeding at night, it started to creep up again. So that's good. We'll see.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, you want higher. Higher is better. Because the thinking on it is that your body is meant to vary the heart rate in response to what's going on.
Responsive for you, where you just always,
Yeah.
I know. I'm bummed about it. But anyway, okay, talk to me about nutrition. So since I'm assuming you approach nutrition the same way as running, very research-based, well thought out. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah. So a lot of it for me is around running, but just in general, a couple big pointers, right? Is you need fuel in your life, but you don't want to be taking giant boluses of sugar all the time. You want to be, what you want to avoid is these big spikes in blood sugar. If you have Skittles, your blood sugar will spike massively.
I just saw Dr. Casey. Do you know her from Levels?
Yeah, Casey's a good friend. Yeah.
And she was saying just recently.
The Skittles are actually the worst.
Worst thing in all their data of tracking. She's the founder of Levels.
She's awesome. She's amazing. You got to follow Casey.
Yeah, she was on the podcast too. I had lunch with her a few weeks ago, but she said Skittles were the thing that showed the worst in all of their data.
So what's interesting is Skittles has, a lot of sugar. It has let's just make up a number. Say you have 200 calories of sugar from Skittles. It's not the fact that you had 200 calories that's the inherent problem. It's the way that those calories hit your system, and it's a very steep spike.
If I was to eat those same calories of Skittles and drink Ketone IQ, do you think my spike would be lower?
Your spike would probably be the same. You would just also have ketones in your system.
Okay.
It might be a little bit lower. It might be higher though, because you're metabolizing the ketones instead of the sugar.
Interesting.
I don't think.
I was just curious.
Yeah, that's one thing. I'm not gonna ketones don't magically.
It's not a metabolic.
Well, they don't undo like a bunch of sugar you just ate.
Got it.
Like it doesn't work.
Okay.
Like, you'll just have like, if you have a donut and some ketone IQ, like
You just
had a donut and ketone IQ.
Yeah.
What I would say is like, if you have the ketone, if you're hungry for a donut, you have ketone IQ, then it'll likely curve instead. Yeah. That,
it can
curb your cravings.
Right. It can take away some hunger, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cause ketones just send a signal that you're not hungry anymore. It's pretty neat. So I would have it in that order.
So this is like a natural, I'm going to say something that you're going to be like, oh God, here we go. But it sounds like I could like curb my appetite like Ozempic, but in a natural way with no bad side effects.
I would say it's a lot better than Ozempic.
Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts on Ozempic, but anyway, carry on about your diet.
Yeah. So you want to avoid these like giant
spikes
in blood sugar. So it's the spike. It's the fact that like a Skittle doesn't have much to it. There's not a lot of fiber to it. It's just like straight sugar. So it just goes straight main lines into your blood glucose. And then your body has to figure out what to do with it. It's like, wow, my blood sugar, like for a normal healthy person, your blood sugar is hanging out at like 80, 90. You have Skittles, it's like doubling. So all of a sudden you're 100% higher than you should be. And your body has to figure out what to do with it. So you release a lot of insulin, which is the hormone your body needs to handle sugar. And then if you're young and healthy, like the insulin will work. It'll like process the sugar. You'll either use it right away, or you'll like pack it, you'll like store it into glycogen, which is like sugar storage, or you'll turn it into fat. Like the insulin will work. The issue is that if over years and years, insulin will stop working. And that's where you get type 2 diabetes. Yeah. That's where you get Alzheimer's. That a lot of like major cardiovascular diseases, neurodegenerative diseases are due to our inability, like the ineffectiveness of insulin over time. When you have too much of these spikes of sugar, it's like listening to loud music, right? Like you can do it once or twice or do it here and there, but like if you do it habitually, if you're always listening to loud headphones for like decades, you're going to get hearing loss. So you don't want to like over spike your insulin, your blood sugar insulin. But okay, if you're a competitive athlete, you need to eat a lot of fuel. Like you got to eat. I eat like 3,000 calories a day. I'm like I weigh like 140 pounds. Like I'm eating a lot, but I'm thinking about, okay, well, if I'm going to have, in the Skittles analogy, if I'm going to have 200 calories, I don't want it from Skittles. I want it from something that's like delivers energy, but in a slower way. Yeah. And that's where like,
so what's your daily diet like?
Okay. I have a lot of fruit. I have a lot of oatmeal, and I go for like the steel cut, like higher fiber. I think instant oatmeal is a joke, because what they've done to make it instant is they've basically taken all the reason that you want oatmeal is that it's high fiber and like slow digesting, that you can have 200 calories and it's slow. Anyway, so usually I'll have like oatmeal with protein powder, like grass-fed protein powder, first thing in the day. Just get some like protein and low glycemic carbohydrates going. Have some coffee, have a shot of Ketone IQ, go for a run, come back. I always have like a giant smoothie with yogurt. Big believer in probiotics, gut health, massively important. I think just eat fermented without thinking too hard about it. Like you can definitely go down rabbit holes and get more sophisticated. But I just whenever there's like kimchi, just load up on it. Whenever there's like sauerkraut, yogurt, load up on it. So I always have a lot of yogurt in my smoothie, and then fruits, veggies, more protein powder, some almonds, just drink on that. And then for lunch, like typical lunch for me, like I'll have Chipotle, like just whole food, real food ingredients in there.
Like, are you getting a burrito or are you getting a salad, like a bowl or something?
I usually get the bowl, with like half rice, and then like load it up with everything. Get just everything, all the.
Are you at Chipotle like every day?
Like most of,
Really?
Chipotle's probably my favorite.
You know what it just reminded me of? My shout out to my friend Liz from high school. Her sister, I worked for her after college, and she like lost all this weight. She was running this backpack company in the suburbs of Chicago. She ate a Chipotle bowl like every day for lunch.
And lost weight.
Every single day. Yeah.
I secretly think Chipotle is like the unofficial meal of entrepreneurs and like hustlers, because I definitely saw it in like, I don't know, it's kind of Silicon Valley, San Francisco circles, where like it's this sweet spot where even like people who are like multi-millionaire, successful, exited, founders, they still go to Chipotle all the time, because it hits this like sweet spot of, it's like
convenient.
It's like convenient, healthy, quick, good. It's everywhere. You don't have to think that hard. Oh, I'm in like Austin, Texas, and New York. Maybe in Austin you get some real like actual Tex-Mex, but like if you're like in any other city, it's like, okay, where do I go? Like I'm in town for like a couple days, and I want something like, there's a difference if you're trying to like go and have like a fun meal versus like, yo, it's Tuesday and I need
just
lunch.
need
I need
fuel.
calories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to worry or have to like think about what's in it. I know I'm just going to get like
Yeah.
rice, beans, protein, veggies, call it a day.
Yeah. And they're antibiotic free.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make this a whole infomercial for
Yeah.
Chipotle. I mean, Chipotle sponsored the podcast, but
I'm having a revelation myself about this Chipotle thing. I think I need to get on it. Okay, so then
Yeah.
what's dinner like?
and then
You cook?
yeah, I cook. Yeah, cook. My wife or I will cook. We always cook. So we have a 20-month-old.
Yeah.
So if I'm cooking, it's actually a fun challenge because we always try to eat the same thing all together. Like we're not big fans. I know you have 3. I have 1, and we were talking before the pod. I'm already like at
Max capacity.
So what helps our family, and I think is that fun like nutritional culinary challenge is like we always try to cook something that we can all eat.
Yeah.
Cause like we don't have time. My wife's busy. I'm busy. Like we don't have time to make like the baby meal and the adult meal. So
Yeah,
we'll make.
do that.
So we'll always make it's like what's that? And it's actually like when you start getting into it, you always just come back to like real whole foods like salmon. You can have some rice. You can have veggies. You can have like normal, just like whole foods. You can't have. I mean, starts getting weird for a baby. It also starts actually getting weird for like adults shouldn't have too much of that stuff either. When you have a baby or toddler, like as you know, like you start being really thoughtful about like, like should they really be eating this? Does this have the right macros? Are they going to develop the right way because if they eat this? But like those are the same questions you should ask.
Yeah,
for
like
adult
we do
diet
stuff when we're pregnant, and it's like, well, geez, I mean, if you shouldn't use that skincare pregnant, like maybe you just shouldn't use that skincare. Period. Yeah.
You took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Like sunscreen, like I want.
Like this was really bad for me when I was pregnant, but now that I had the baby, I think I'm gonna go back to my like sulfate loaded, like shampoo and stuff. Yeah.
So
No, it's true. Yeah.
That's so funny. I've been into this since before wife and kids and everyone. I was probably like the only
transition.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, I was probably the only like bachelor dude just like rocking like baby sunscreen for no reason.
Me too. I wanted to launch a sunscreen company like 15 years ago in my 20s.
Yeah.
I got talked out of it. But yeah, I've been like buying Badger for how long? Because you got to like have zinc titanium dioxide only and the active ingredient. People are always like, is this good? I'm like, no, it has avobenzone in it. No, it has oxybenzone in it. Like, no, you don't want to put that on your skin or your kids' skin. This is the other thing they tell parents. We're totally on a tangent here, but that you can't use sunscreen on your baby before 1. I don't know if you heard this, but like this is a thing, right? But diaper rash cream is zinc oxide. Like the main ingredient if you look at the active ingredient in any diaper rash cream, it's zinc oxide. So I'm always like, really? So I can put this on my kid's butt like 4 times a day, but I'm not allowed to put sunscreen on. So what I think they really mean is like you shouldn't use chemical sunscreen on your kids. But I'm assuming if I can put diaper rash cream on my child, which is definitely fine, then I can put a sunscreen with the active ingredient as only zinc oxide on my kid. Anyway.
That makes total sense to me. Yeah, I've been trying to.
That's my mom hack of the day.
I think it's a great mom hack. I've been trying to wear just less sunscreen in general, like just get some vitamin D. I'm not trying to get sunburn, I'm pretty light complexion. I'll either cover up all the way, like if it's really sunny out and I'm going for a run, I will just wear. I have a lot of like very light but long sleeve shirts. You can find like every brand makes like New Balance, Adidas. You can just get like their white, thin, whatever their thinnest material, but like long sleeves, and like you're not going to overheat, and just wear that instead of sunscreen and like wear a hat.
Yeah.
And then what I'll do is like for the last 20 minutes, I'll like take it all off, like jogging the last couple miles and get some vitamin D. And just feel really good.
Totally. I'm with you. It's a big thing right now, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's good for all the things, circadian rhythm, everything. Okay, this is great. So you're running a business. You just had a baby.
Yeah.
I mean, 20 months is still pretty baby. What's like the hardest thing going on for you these days?
I've seen as the business has evolved and as my family has evolved that there's always something to do. There's always something to take care of at work, somewhere to like push, someone to follow up with, there's always, I think that's why I got into entrepreneurship to begin with, is like every time opportunities multiply as they are seized it's like a Sun Tzu quote. It's like every time you do one thing, like, okay, you get into one grocery store, it goes well. Okay, now you can open 5 other grocery stores. Like everything multiplies. And so I wake up in the morning and I always have ideas. And I feel like there's this constant, and as a business built more and more, it's like gone like exponential from there. And then also inside of a family, I feel like the same thing where there's just exponential contributions to make to the family. Like now we want to have another kid. Now we want to do like, okay, we got to get to a different house, bigger house, more space. Like there's infinity things always be pushing. And I like the game. I'm like addicted to the game. Like I want to build my business, I want to build my family. So the hardest thing for me is doing nothing, which is so important. Like shutting it all off.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos, Amazon founder, he talks about how he like putters around and his first meeting's at 10 a.m. He's that's his word. It's like the importance of puttering in the morning, the importance of like negative space. And I feel like it only gets harder as you are more successful because there's like more people calling on your time. There's more opportunities, all that. And it's just hard to do nothing and let dots magically connect. And that connects to like part of why I love running so much is like, it's the one time of the day where I'm like forced, like I'm not on my phone. I'm not like, I'm out in nature, getting my vitamin D. Like you can't reach me. It's my, I try to get other time too in the day, but like that's part of why I like running is just like forces me to get some downtime.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing for me.
Yeah. I can relate to that.
Yeah.
I think, even just like focus too. Like, don't you feel like you're at a time in your business and maybe your life all around where it's like so opportunistic, right? Like you could just say yes to everything. Like, I don't know. I thought that was like the hardest part about growing Primal Kitchen was like determining when to say no. And it was always like more often than you thought.
It's always more. I got some great advice recently, which is that inside of every yes, there's 1,000 no's.
Yeah.
As soon as you say yes to one thing, you're implicitly saying no to so many other things.
Yeah.
So I think when people are, if you're a recovering like people pleaser, like if you have a hard time saying no to people, just know that every time you're saying yes, like there's a lot of no's because you're going to go and do that thing. Like if you say you're going to marathon train with your friend or you're going to start a company with your friend or whatever, like by saying yes to that, there's a lot, if you're going to do that in earnest, there's a lot of stuff you just said no to.
Yeah.
And so the next time before you say yes to something, like go through in your mind, like what is on the chopping block? There's only 24 hours in the day, right? Everyone has 24 hours in the day. The most successful entrepreneur, Michael Jordan, president of the United States, everyone has 24 hours in the day. If you want to get your goals done, you can get there. People have done great things, but like the pyramids were built in 24 hours. The Golden Gate Bridge was built in 24 hours in the day. Like you can do it. It's just, you need to, by saying yes to something, you're going to have to say no to 1,000 things.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm always like, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no.
Yeah.
That's like my big thing.
Yeah.
Like, when you're like, oh, should I do it or not? I'm kind of like, if I'm even debating, it's like, obviously it's a no.
Yeah. That's one thing we talk about at work all the time is like, I'll ask someone on the team, like, okay, how did that event go? And the thought experiment I always ask is like, would you rather do that never again or 10 times again? Because what happens a lot is like, oh, we did a brand partnership
We'll just do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I say to them, no, I say sharpen it. Like if that was good, do it every month. Do it 4 times a month.
Yeah. If you don't want to do it 4 times a month, don't do it at all. Time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think like sharpening it to that level, it's like, it's the same idea as like hell yes or no. It's just like putting a number on it. It's like,
I like that.
Yeah. It's like,
a way to think through things.
Right. Like, I mean, it's a little model to just quickly apply on, because it forces you to underwrite it. It's like, okay, what was the actual ROI on this? Like if I multiply all the costs and all the return on the investment by 10, like, is it a big negative number or a big positive number?
No, that's super smart. Okay, so are you like a big supplement guy aside from your keto? How many Ketone IQs do you take a day?
I have around 3.
Do you do every day? Do you ever not take any?
I'll sometimes take a couple days off. Yeah. Okay. My stance on it is it's a fuel. It's not like a drug. It's like protein or carbohydrate. It's another macronutrient that your body uses.
Collagen in a sense in that way, right? Like collagen's not really like a macronutrient, but it's like something we all need and we've been eating forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Collagen's a protein. And it's
not a complete protein. It's like a weird thing.
Yeah.
But anyway.
It's interesting because
we had like there's a whole thing there. Anyway.
Like I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Like on that labeling.
Yeah.
Because you
can you really claim it as protein or not? Or like,
because it does, because like the FDA says in order to have a protein on your nutrition facts, it needs to be a complete protein.
Yeah.
So you can say at high, there's 10 grams of protein or 10 grams of collagen, but then weirdly you can't say there's 10 grams of protein.
It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. So
I'm
supplements.
So I'm not a massive supplements guy.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to it either. Like I do have a few things. I have iron because it helps. I find just energy levels with iron helps your body transport oxygen around, and a lot of runners take iron. Magnesium. I sweat a lot. I try to make sure I'm having enough electrolytes in general. Magnesium seems to really help me feel more balanced. Omega-3s, of all the supplements out there, I think there's probably the most research on omega-3s for heart health, brain health. Ketone IQ. I not a lot else from there. I saw a funny, I don't want to call anyone out in particular, but I saw a recent like biohacker health influencer with like a cup of pills.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, this is like what I do every day. It's like, maybe they're going to live to be 210 years old and I'm the fool. But to me, I try to like keep it, maybe it's just also a practical thing. Like, what do I do if I'm traveling and I don't have access to that? Or what, like, I don't want to be dependent on like a monkey paw full of supplements every day.
No, I'm with you. I hate the swallowing pills, but I like love buying supplements. Like that's like my toxic trait is buying supplements. But
So I have it for a little.
If they're like powders or gummies or something like that, I'm much more into it. The swallowing pills is like the worst experience ever. But I agree. There's like, I'm religious about like, I eat the same like gummy omega supplements my kids take. I'm trying Armor Collagen right now. I'm kind of excited about that. And then
colostrum.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I drink collagen every day. I don't know. Some people might consider that a supplement. Some people might not. But okay, so who's inspiring you these days?
I read and listen to a lot about like dead founders, like
dead specifically,
like,
no one alive.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a lot to unpack here. Okay.
It's not that I don't mind. It's just that when you're dead, it's like, that person like did their whole thing. Like Sam Walton. It's like he completed his entire cycle versus like, I don't know, Elon Musk, interesting, but he hasn't like completed his.
Yeah. Like it's still like to be determined how successful this is.
Right.
Interesting. So you're like really into like the whole story.
Yeah. And it's really interesting to hear how like, I don't know, people know about like Ogilvy. Like there's a big advertising agency named Ogilvy. Like I'm just curious, who's Ogilvy?
Right.
Like who is that dude? And like, how do you get down? Like why is that name still relevant?
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because I think that, history repeats, and it's cool to see how things don't change, like the level of hustle or the level of, like I was learning about Estee Lauder, and she was crazy. She was so effective, like in crazy, like she would have been, like you would have invested in her. If she was alive here today, you would invest in Estee Lauder. She was an absolute legend. Like her level of like just like hustle, like her first big account, she got into Saks Fifth Avenue in New York, and she was the one like personally trying out. There's one story about her where like when it came to packaging design, she was obsessed.
Yeah.
So she had like her creams were good, and she's like, how's it going to package? Every time she was she'd get invited to a social function, a dinner, whatever. She would go into the bathroom, and with her like in her purse, she had all these like samples of different packaging, and she would just like hold them up next to the wallpaper and the decor. She's like, because she knew her customer. She's like,
it's going to be sitting in their bathroom. What's it going to look like in here?
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah. And like, how many people like do that today? Right.
Yeah.
It's that level of tenacity. Like Steve Jobs' mentor was this guy named Edwin Land who started Polaroid.
Okay.
And Polaroid, I mean, I don't know the last time you took a Polaroid picture, but the fact that is still even relevant and we're not even using it. It's like Polaroid like just created this entire genre and had a complete monopoly over all the patents and everything there. But he was insane. And like there's okay. On the Polaroid technology, I'm just obsessed with entrepreneurship. We can bring it back.
No, this is great. I'm loving this.
I'll share one story about Edwin Land, where the Polaroid film, it develops instantly, as we all know. There's certain colors that it develops better, like yellows and reds develop like more precisely. So when he was launching their big Polaroid launch for the first time ever, he realized kind of late, he's like, oh man, we got to have like stuff in the room. It was like this big banquet. He's like, we got to have like stuff in the room that's going to really look good on these Polaroids. So he got it in his mind, he needed like fresh tulips that were yellow and red. And he had to get them and this was like 70 years ago. There's no internet. He figured out a way to get like fresh tulips from Holland, like overnighted or like whatever on the fastest boat over, so you could have like yellow and red tulips.
That's crazy.
So, yeah, it's crazy. And it's interesting because when you hear like in modern days, like if you're a founder, entrepreneur, just whatever, hardworking person, like if you think there's some like insane thing that you could do that would get you an incremental extra inch and you're not sure if you should do it, you should totally do it.
I like that.
You should totally do it. Like fight for every inch.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
And
So dead founders, that's your thing.
I like dead
Okay.
founders.
What else? Anyone alive you're into? What podcast were you listening to on the way over here?
I've been listening to a lot of How I Built This. I guess I guess those are alive founders sometimes. There's another podcast that's called Founders, where there's like a lot of like discussion around dead founders. And I listen to Huberman Lab a ton.
Yeah.
Those are probably top 3 of overall listens. How I Built This, Founders, and Huberman Lab. Yeah.
Cool. Are you a big book guy?
I read like one book a month. I don't know if that makes me a big book guy, not a big book guy.
I mean, I think you're a big book guy. Yeah. Are you reading like fiction, nonfiction?
Generally nonfiction these days. I like fiction, but I feel like just for practical reasons.
Yeah, you're in the bettering yourself phase of life.
Yeah. I feel like I just want to like soak it all up as quickly as possible. Reading this book. Most recent book was this book called The Mom Test. It's a very like businessy book about how like your mom is always lying to you about like if you say, do you like this product, or do you think that this product is a good idea? And like, and then it extends to like generally friends or just even human people that are compassionate, that like you should, it's basically this book of like the questions not to ask or the questions to ask if you're trying to get feedback on your product.
Interesting.
Because everyone's going to try to ego protect you for the most part. They'll be, oh yeah, that's a good idea. But like, it's like, oh, does my recipe app, do you think this is a good idea? It's like, yeah, I could see using that. It's like,
no, you're actually never going to use this.
Yeah, there's that person just being like polite and agreeable and trying to like not ruin your day.
Not
there's
me.
better.
I was on the phone with the founder last week, and she was like, "What do you think?" I'm like, "Your packaging's like terrible." I'm pulling it up on Fresh Direct, and I'm like, "Your competitor looks way more premium than you, and their price is better than you." Like you need, and she's like, "Oh my god, I'm dying right now." She's like, nobody tells me this," and I'm like, "Yeah, because it's true." Like, yeah. So if you want someone who's not the mom test, you can call me. I'm from Chicago. I'll give it to you straight.
Hell yeah. Okay, we need more you in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I can see that.
Yeah, it's
that's a problem.
It's little things. It's like you almost want to put your pitch away. Like you want to understand what someone's problem is. What are they doing to currently solve it? How much does that solution currently cost?
Yeah.
Like things like that, where you might think you're solving a problem that is valuable, but like it's like someone will complain about something at work, but it's like, well, what are you doing to solve it? And it's like, oh, it's actually not that big of a deal. Like we hire someone for minimum wage who just clicks on a thing every Tuesday. It's fine. I wish they didn't have to click on it, but it's not a massive cost, right? So it's like so if someone can have like a minimum wage virtual assistant like click on something on Tuesday to solve that problem, you're not going to be able to sell them like an enterprise software solution that's $10,000 a month,
right?
No matter how elegant and cool, it's like just the personal click, like
it's just back to the basics.
Yeah.
I'm a big back to the basics person.
Yeah.
It's just like some of the stuff, it's like common sense. Why have we overcomplicated this stuff so much? Even food, I'm like, oh my God, everyone's like technology and food. And I'm like, food doesn't have a technology problem. Like last time I checked, technology was the problem. We don't need technology to step in and solve the problem.
It's like too much technology. Like you got to have, like you started like hydrogenating vegetable oils and
or even just like mixing up a Impossible Burger. I mean, how much technology went into that? I mean, sorry, I don't know how you feel on the Franken food fake meat thing, but I'm just really?
No,
how can we think this is better for? I'm not even buying it's better for the planet. I'm like manufacturing all these ingredients, shipping them to a co-man. There's more ingredients than dog food in these fake meat burgers.
I don't even know if you would feed that to your dog. Your dog might walk away.
I wouldn't feed it to my dog, but yeah, I mean,
like
I can't even.
I agree. I think I agree with Lindy. I like people been eating meat for a super long time. I'm pro meat.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's so controversial.
I know it's weird to say, but I think there's been like I think the like pendulum's kind of like swung out back to like I think people realize like oat milk, like not like how do you milk an oat? Like and it's just a lot of sugar.
Yeah,
it's like what was broken with whole milk already. Like people have been drinking that for a long time.
Yeah.
If you have a dietary reaction to it, allergic reaction, like totally, like put it down. Like if it doesn't agree with you, if you do an elimination diet and you find you feel better, like 1,000%. Like I'm not trying to force whole milk, but like I don't think it's like broken. I think whole milk is like a
whole food.
A whole food. Like it's succeeded the test of time. Whole milk, eggs, steak, like these are like if you're thinking about it like technology wise, like they've lasted forever. Like it was not going to work, like it would have somehow,
we would know already.
yeah, like there's a reason you don't eat like grass or something, right? Like that didn't work for us.
Yeah.
This is something I think a lot about, right? Because we have a very like innovative food technology business. Like my business, like we make a ketone. So it's something I think a lot about. It's like, well, like how do I square the circle here? And the way I come to it is that, well, humans have always like used ketones. Like ancient humans actually were like in ketosis more.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have so much carbohydrates. So like the Lindy thing, like
what's the Lindy thing?
Lindy is the idea is that like something that's, if you want to know how long something will continue to be around, look at how long it's already been around.
Interesting.
It came out of Broadway in the 1920s, where the idea was like they were trying to like figure out which Broadway shows were going to be on the like next show bill to print or whatever. And like the most likely ones to continue to be around are the ones that have been around for 4 years.
Interesting. Okay.
Like what's going to be around in 4 years from now? It's probably
what's been around for the past 4 years.
Right. If you had to take a bet, like what movie are people going to talk about in 10 years? Is it going to be Titanic or is it going to be a movie that came out last week?
Interesting.
It's probably Titanic, because Titanic has already stood like 20 years test of time. So anyway, that applies to all sorts of everything. There's obviously, if you go totally Lindy, then you just end up Amish, because like, well, how long have airplanes been around? How long is the internet? So I think it's an interesting thought experiment.
Okay.
There's nuance to everything, right? It's like I think in general, you want to go Lindy, you want to go things that have stood the test of time. I think there's a lot of times where new technology can do, even though it's new, it can do the Lindy thing, but better. Like a lot of social media, like the need for community and togetherness and communication has always existed. That's very Lindy.
Yeah.
We're social, tribal society for 300,000 years. So in some ways, technology is like meeting that Lindy need. And in some ways, like technology is like completely frying our brains, because it's like doing something completely weird and different to our dopamine system.
Yeah.
Like we're not supposed to be staring at like blue light screen all day.
I know.
That's not Lindy.
That's not Lindy.
But like being in communion with people is very Lindy. So it's like, I don't know, is an airplane Lindy? Like, no, but like, I don't know, people have always been traveling from village to village and like doing like commerce and socializing with different tribes all around the world. Like that's Lindy. So it's like, sometimes you can interpret the modern thing in a way that is Lindy, but sometimes the modern thing is just
so
like,
you're squaring the circle on your Ketone IQ.
That like it's a modern interpretation of like humans are meant to spend more time in ketosis.
Yeah.
Which I do believe.
Used to.
Yeah.
And we just have gotten away from that. And this helps us spend more time there.
Exactly.
Theoretically. Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. This is my last question. I ask everyone this, but what is something most people don't know about you?
I was on Shark Tank.
Really?
Yeah.
With this?
No, prior brand.
Which brand?
It was called Go Cubes. It was a chewable coffee, and we were pitching the sharks to take a bite out of chewable coffee. It was great. They didn't do a deal. The brand
didn't take a bite.
They did not take a bite, but it ended up being a great ad for the product. We did a lot. This was like 1-2 brands ago, just like getting started in the entrepreneurial journey. Zero regrets. Like got it, like a good business, got like made money, all that good stuff. It was when I was poking around on different concepts, and then we told the whole story at the start of the podcast, but at some point I was like, okay, what's like really interesting in the human performance space? Like what's something that's like venture scale, like really big and interesting? Like Go Cubes is cool. It was like this coffee, like each cube was half a cup of coffee, tasted like coffee. It was like a gummy coffee.
Yeah, cool.
Got on Shark Tank with it. Had a lot of fun. I don't know. We sold like $1 million of it. It wasn't like the biggest.
Then did you shut the company down?
We just wound it down. We should have, in retrospect, sold it or something.
Oh, it's so hard.
But it's so small. It's so small. Yeah.
Who's going to buy it, I guess.
No, you're not wrong. I think that's a good counterpoint.
You should have just kept it and had like someone run it on Amazon and see what happened, and then get it to like 10 million and then sell it to someone.
Yeah, but you're smart.
Yeah, I don't know. But that's like time and energy, right?
Yeah.
You gotta create that white space. We talked about that white space.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it was time. You closed it up. There's nothing wrong with it.
Close it up around. So I had a couple of things going, and like once things really started coming into focus with ketones, got this government contract, and it started getting really interesting. I was like, all right, let's like shut down everything else.
And
like this
focus.
seems really interesting.
No, see, I think you're smart. Like that's the right move. You got to focus.
I see a lot of brands where like the brands that I look to for a lot of success are the ones that have like one hero product that goes to the moon.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different ways. I'm not saying that's the prescription, but you see a lot of, um, there's a certain pattern of like, hey, we figured out like the I don't know, like Red Bull had one
Yeah.
flavor for like a long, long time. Like you figure one thing out really well. And then once that's at a certain level, then you start
Yeah.
broadening out. I think, again, I don't want this to be prescriptive because I know there's a lot of advice that would say the exact opposite, which is like, don't launch anything unless you have at least like 3 flavors of it or what. I think I just like study a lot the patterns of those companies that you invent like a flying shoe, like invent something that's like so darn good. And if it's not like good, like keep focusing on it or like find something else that is like really, really good. Cause then I don't know. I think that it works for me because I like to just like maniacally obsess over one thing.
Yeah. But that works kind
Yeah.
of for everyone. This is like advice I give a lot of people. We didn't take it at Primal Kitchen, by the way. I mean, we did in the sense
What's your hero SKU? What was your
mayonnaise.
Yeah.
Mayonnaise was our first SKU in the first year in business. Is all we sold was mayonnaise, and
Yeah.
then we launched into like all these categories after. And people gave me advice like in food you get a lot like, oh, you need 3 flavors,
Right.
you need shelf presence, and we were like, nah. We actually then launched one bar, and I remember talking to David Woods, who now works for CrossFit, but he was a Rocky Mountain buyer for Whole Foods at the time, and he was like, I was like, David, we can't just go to Whole Foods with one bar, and he's like, why not? You went with one mayonnaise and it was fine, and I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, sure, we'll take it. So we did it. I mean, we since discontinued our bar line, but I will say on the focus thing, like you look at like a lot of the successful businesses who have had big exits in the food space. You've got like Vital Proteins. I mean, they still
Blue Tubs.
the Blue Tub.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all they're selling. RX Bar, I would say they're focused in the sense is like they just did bars really well, right? Like they did one thing profitably really well. They had a huge success from it. It just makes it easier to grow your business, to make decisions, and to sell your business.
Yeah.
And you're not like a schizophrenic founder.
I-
We were schizophrenic,
But you guys did quite well. So
but it
that's
worked for us.
it worked for you. I think
Give
it's
people the other advice.
it's like you got to be able to like manage your own psychology. And if you can do a brand that can do a lot of things, that's awesome.
Yeah,
And if you
but you still have to do one thing well.
I think I like so what like Steve Jobs ran Apple and then got fired by his board. And then when he came back to Apple, it had gone astray. And the first thing he did was he like canceled like 3/4 of their products.
Yeah.
They canceled like the Apple Newton and they had all this junk.
Yeah,
And then like a few years later, they launched iPod and then they launched iPhone. Like he just like brought it down to planet Earth. Like we're going to launch like a small number of really good stuff. I don't even freaking understand all our products. I want to buy a computer and this brand is trying to sell me 5 different computers. Like make it simple for me.
Yeah.
Like what,
Yeah.
like, so I think it's just managing your own psychology. I think there's great examples of brands. I think a lot of apparel brands, I think it's very hard to just do one
Yeah.
thing. I think a lot of times you have to have like 5 shirts and then, oh, we should have some like shorts too. We should do
Yeah.
hats.
but I mean, it's like the inventory on that model
Yeah.
is just really like hard for me to swallow as an entrepreneur. Like that would suck.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
It's super tough.
No, forget it.
Yeah, no, that's the thing is it gets, I mean, we know as operators that like things get exponentially complex in food, right? For instance, like your mayonnaise supply chain manufacturing stack is completely different from your bars.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, and it's a different
made-
buyer in the grocery store, and it's a different everything. It's just it's double
Yeah.
the work.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so it's, and then you maybe have different people managing it internally. The customer may be different. Like it gets complicated. But I think it worked for you guys because the premise of like everything in the aisles at the store is junk, except
Yeah.
like
In
like
the center store, yeah.
yeah, that you stand out. It's like, okay, well, I actually trust this mayonnaise. Like, oh, there's if you see the Primal Kitchen logo on something in any aisle, you can feel good about it.
Yeah.
So it like worked for you guys, but I don't know if it would work for
Well, I
other
would
brands.
say it worked for us because it was almost like a lifestyle business play,
Yeah.
right? Like, and that was where the brand roots came from. Like, Mark had educated people on this lifestyle.
Yep.
And I think innovation wise, we innovated in the mayonnaise category, which is a big category that had seen no innovation, right? And then the same principles that made us successful in mayonnaise were just like there in salad dressings. Like, there was no salad dressings that didn't have canola or soybean oil in them,
Yeah.
like none. So it was kind of like a no brainer. Like, how do you not do this? Like, we took one theory and applied it across multiple categories. But we've had failed categories. I mean, we discontinued our bar line, we discontinued our frozen line. You know, we didn't win everywhere.
Yeah.
I always say, like, I haven't I don't know, I don't talk much about like our positioning before we exited, but I always say like the worst thing that could have happened to Primal Kitchen as far as like selling your company goes is our bar business would have been 50% of our sales and our condiments business would have been 50% of your sales, because then who do you sell to? Like what big company wants to buy this business that has a $50 million of bar sales, but also $50 million of condiment sales? You like mean nothing to nobody.
Right.
Like you got to mean something to somebody.
I think it's really astute. Yeah. Cause like the companies that will buy bars, there's a set of those companies.
Right.
And then
they
there's
don't want mayonnaise.
they don't want mayonnaise. And there's a set of companies that want mayonnaise.
And they're not going to buy your bars.
Yeah. And there might be like one company that wants both. Cool. Now you have one. Imagine you're going to sell your house and there's one person, 1 out of 8 billion people that could buy your house, that's interested in your weird whatever you set up in your house.
Yeah. No, I give that advice to people a lot. I see a lot of founders do that.
Yeah.
They like launch in one category and they're like, and then we're going to do this. And I'm like, oh God, it's like, don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like do the one thing, sell the one thing, do the one thing really well. Yeah. Anyway.
No, it's, yeah.
Yeah. Well, this was
Company
such a lovely conversation. Thank you so much. Tell everyone where they can find you, where they can find Ketone IQ. Like give us the follows.
Yeah. Yeah. People can find me on social media. I'm at Michael D. Brandt. And then my company, the company I have, it's called Health Via Modern Nutrition, HVMN. So we're at HVMN. Our product's called Ketone IQ. Check us out on HVMN. Check me out, Michael D. Brandt. Love hearing from people on. Sorry. You can find me on social media. You can find me on social media. I'm at Michael D. Brandt. My company is called Health Via Modern Nutrition. It's at HVMN. Love hearing from people, whatever you're doing in your physical life, training for a marathon, biohacking, or whatever you're doing in your professional life, building a business, entrepreneurship. Love hearing from people. I'm always sharing tips, tricks as I'm figuring it out myself. So definitely say what's up.
Love it. Thank you. Cool. That was great. For work, I run Primal Kitchen. We exited the company to Kraft Heinz in 2018. So I now run a business within the broader corporate organization of Kraft Heinz.
On the game.
Yeah, it's fun.
If you weren't here right now, where would you be?
Surfing, playing tennis, or at the farmer's market.
All right. What's one thing that you're grateful for right here, right now?
My health. I think like it's just, if you don't have that, you just don't really have anything. I feel good. I got a lot of sleep last night. So I think those two would probably be my top.
You've accomplished phenomenal things in your career, probably a lot more successful than the average person coming out of your high school. When did you first realize that you had that dog in you?
I have like major imposter syndrome. So I like don't even think right now I would even associate myself as having that dog in me, if you will. I'm just like, I'm here. I did it. But like,
you never had a moment where you're like, wow, I'm like built different. I'm more pointy elbows than the next person over. Like I keep it a little bit more real.
I'm more curious.
Okay.
I would imagine. I know I'm more curious than the average person.
Yeah.
And like when I go in deep on like the research. Like if I'm recommending something, like you can trust that it's been thoroughly vetted on like a psychotic level. So I would say I'm very curious about people. I love people. I think relationships are like the end all be all. Like that's pretty much still how everything gets done. But yeah, curiosity I would say would definitely be like something I realized I have in like a greater capacity than maybe other people.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's hard to train curiosity too, right?
Yeah, I think you're just maybe like born with curiosity. Yeah. But I went to summer camp for 8 weeks when I was 8 years old. And there was like a leadership element of the camp. I like forgot about this. One of my best friends is from this camp. She's still one of my best friends today. So I'm eight weeks overnight camp at 8 years old, right? Like that's kind of,
it's a lot.
It's extreme.
Yeah.
My parents both did this. I loved it, but we had this thing at the end of the summer. You could be voted onto the camp council for the next year. And you were either like a little star or a little flame. And Mary Robb always tells the story like, oh, you were like the youngest person at Camp Oso to ever get like a little star. And I was like, oh, was I? Like, I didn't even remember this, but this was like a tidbit a friend noticed. You know, and she's telling me this now. And I'm like, I don't know. I was like run of the mill of my friends. Like in high school, if you ask my friends, like, who's going to be the most successful? I don't think any of them would have been like Morgan. No.
Really?
No. Definitely not. No.
Huh.
No.
That's because you weren't like selling stuff on the weekends and
I was playing soccer, like drinking long before I was 21. Enjoying life and like traveling a lot. Like I traveled a lot the camp thing like instilled this like major like curiosity for like the world.
Yeah. Well, just so everyone knows, like you're co-founder of this brand that had a very successful exit.
Yeah.
And not everyone does that. Like when did you realize there was a certain point you realized like, whoa, I'm on like some crazy trajectory? Like obviously the day that you sign the paperwork and you sell your business for 9 figures.
Yeah.
But like, was there a point before that you're like, whoa, I'm like, like life is moving a little quicker than maybe it was in high school?
I mean, not until we sold the company, I wouldn't say. Like, I mean, I hired, like, it's a super weird organization. So we're like 5 years post exit almost, and my entire team is still here, which is like unheard of. So
Yeah.
I think for me, what I'm like most proud of is actually like the first hire was my best friend from childhood. I pulled one of my friends that I played soccer with in high school out of Miller Coors, the beer industry, and she sells for us. My best friend from Los Angeles manages the Target account for us.
Whoa.
So it's like very much two people have hired me in the past. I hired and they work for me at Primal Kitchen. It's very much like, I would say that's what I feel like maybe I did different. Like a lot of people can't work with their friends, and I have like very successfully worked with like
Whoa.
almost only my friends.
Yeah. Every time you have a business problem to solve, you just figure out, you just pull the super Power Ranger, Mega Ranger together of a number.
It's like people who, I think you've done this too, like people who weren't like superstars in the CPG space. Like Anna, our first hire, I mean, she was working at the University of Minnesota in communications when I hired her, and she had come from a Toro, the lawnmower company before that. And she's a total rock star. Like she's our, VP of marketing within Kraft Heinz, and Kraft Heinz looks at her as like this very innovative marketing person, but like you wouldn't have hired her based off her like resume if you didn't know her. So
Yeah. We love the outsider.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And we've got a whole team of people like that who are just like very independent, like love the mission. The brand's awesome. They're like bought in, and they're very like self-directed.
Yeah. Cool. Well, gotta do a whole longer podcast on your whole story at some point. But yeah,
I love it.
5 questions, Michael Brandt. Thank you, Morgan. You're
Cheers.
awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, cheers.
It's great.